Hello, welcome to the self-learning platform by Dr. Sushma Singh. Today we are going to start Unit 16, Welfare State, and our topic is justification of the welfare state. We are going to start on topic equality. Along with liberty, the social philosophy of welfare has been concerned with equality itself, not the justification in national terms of socially and economically necessary inequalities or the identification and elimination of objective needs, but egalitarianism for its own sake. What R.H. Tanvey called the religion of inequality has been a constant source of criticism from welfare philosophers. However, the liberal welfare philosophy has never advocated an uncompromising egalitarianism, but a system in which those legal and political inequalities that classical liberalism had always valued are reflected in the economic world to a far greater extent than is possible in the capitalist market system. Equality has a potent value of welfarism. It is argued that the virtues of exchange relationship are badly compromised if the participants in them are separated by gross disparity of wealth. Since in the capitalist societies some entrant to the market will start with an advantage for which perhaps no rational justification can be given, this inequality will be reflected in the outcome and the result itself. The market, instead of being an arena of expanding opportunities, will become a source of inequalities. There is a persistent question: why should the value of equality have the significance it traditionally had in the philosophy of welfare? This is because all societies seem to exhibit pretty regular inegalitarian features which seem more or less impervious to significant correction by political methods. Modern legal and political inequalities are not accompanied by economic equality. Wealth can buy political power in defense of merely formal equal rules of the liberal system. In spite of the disappointing results of egalitarianism, the welfare theorists feel that there is still a more obligation to promote welfare through egalitarian measures, where this would not have such an adverse effect on the output of the economy that the worst off would suffer. Not to take action in such circumstances would be to accept the level of economic inequality, which itself has adverse or welfare reducing effect on the rest of the society. Now, the next one is rights. Some theorists have justified the welfare state in context of rights. According to H.L.A. Hart, rights imply a special continuity in the use of force or threat of force to secure that what is just or fair or something right to have done shall in fact be done. It is only in these circumstances that coercion of another human being is legitimate. If there are any welfare rights, then it can only be so if coercion can be justified in the redistribution of resources than their possession necessitates. Welfare is not justified in terms of benevolent, but is a feature of entitlement or justice. However, this could have two implications for the welfare theory. Welfare rights would be symmetrical with the familiar negative right, that is, right to forbearance from aggregative action on the part of others, and it would provide that the very existence of welfare rights enforceable as law encouraging people to adjust their behavior accordingly, that is, become welfare rights claimants. However, the critics claimed that there is no exact symmetry between the negative and positive rights, since the latter are indeterminate as well as not fully justifiable. The next point is citizenship. Because of the objection raised against the rights theory, welfare state now grasps on the notion of right as a theory of citizenship. This has the advantage of limiting the applicability of welfare claims to particular communities and the theoretical one of establishing the identity of person not by their capacity to choose, but by their membership of the collective community. Citizenship as a foundation for welfare is a little less ambitious. It simply maintains that claims to resources are an extension from the legal and political rights that have emerged in the development of liberal democracy. T.H. Marshall specifically placed the economic aspect of citizenship in an evolutionary account of the development of liberal democracy. Talking in the context of British society, Marshall identified three categories of citizenship rights. The first one is legal, which embraces the traditional rights to free expression, property, equality before law, and the familiar civil liberties. Second, political, which covered the political rights in a democracy. And the third one is social, the welfare rights which give a person certain entitlement to resources. Social citizenship was an attempt to reform capitalism through legislation. The gradual development of universal provisions for basic education, health, and social security were attempts to change the nature of cash nexus between the capital and labor. Legislation on minimum wages, hours of work, employment of children, working conditions, occupational safety, and compensation of occupational accidents made the employees less vulnerable to the capitalist class. The state, through positive intervention and by reformulating its taxation and expenditure policies, is able to resolve the conflicts between the two. Though the creation of social citizenship did not remove class inequalities, nor was it able to fundamentally transform the economic basis of capitalism, still, through the welfare state, it was able to reduce certain social inequalities, especially those associated with the operation of the market. The rationale for the citizenship lies in its capacity for the integration of all individuals into a society. For instance, the presence of economic rights that pertain to citizenship prevent class conflict getting out of hand. Citizenship imposed modifications on the class. Though Marshall was not opposed to the market, he did see an unrestrained capitalism as socially destructive. Other citizenship theorists also believe that the three types of citizenships are interrelated. For example, the right to free speech and legal equality require some measure of welfare if they are to be more than a formal guarantee. Indeed, liberal pluralism is itself only possible when some measure of economic welfare is guaranteed. Now, the next point is justice. Apart from the above justification in contemporary political theory, justice has become almost inextricable bound up with welfare. John Rawls, in his book A Theory of Justice, insists that the justice is the first virtue of a society and that it should always take priority over other goods, which may be interpreted in the welfare sense. Yet, this concept of justice is a welfareist concept, one specifically concerned with the legitimation of a distribution of resources and with levels of well being. Indeed, despite its individualistic methodology, it is a normative theory that posits welfare functions for society differing a substance but not in principle from other welfare functions such as utilitarian one. His justice is nearer to the liberal political economy, while his first principle of justice is concerned with the equal rights to the most extensive basic liberties compatible with similar liberties of others. The second principle is concerned with the arrangements of social and economic inequalities in such a way that they are to the greatest benefit of the least advantaged. The purpose of legislation is largely concerned with the achievement of long term social and economic goals, as well as to fulfill the principle that requires that social and economic policies be aimed at maximizing the long term expectations of the least advantaged under conditions of fair equality and opportunity. At social and economic level, Rawls is in favor of redistributive justice. He considers the proper function of government as not only to maintain the social order but the achievement of distributive justice by placing the highest social value on the need of the neediest. However, he does not believe in complete egalitarian distribution. He advocates privileges and inequalities not in the utilitarian sense of maximization of social good, but to improve the plight of the least advantaged. This is because, according to Rawls, natural abilities and circumstances of birth foster privileges and inequalities, and since such inequalities cannot be eliminated, a just society will seek to compensate for the resulting privileges by investing its resources, including the abilities of the most talented, in efforts assigned to improve the plight of the least fortunate. To reward those endowed with superior ability would be arbitrary justice. Justice, properly understood, calls not for rewarding those with superior ability, but for compensating those endowed with lesser ability. In short, rising above the laissez faire view of the classical liberalism, which leaves the individual alone, Rawls propounded a theory of justice in consonance with the requirement of liberal democratic welfare state. As he writes, if law and government act effectively to keep the market competitive, resources fully employed, property and wealth widely distributed over time, and to maintain the appropriate social minimum, then if there is equality of opportunity underwritten by education for all, the resulting distribution will be just. In the context of welfare, Ross is a muted egalitarian who extends the ethics of redistribution beyond the ownership of tangible property to the income derived from personal talent. Superficially, at least, this seems to put the welfare imperative above the individualistic demand of justice. Here we want to wind up today's lecture. Thank you so much for your attention.